Welcome to the Peace is an Action Verb podcast. I'm here with Michael Mallory, and Michael and I live near each other. I'm in the same general neck of the woods here in Northern California. And so I first became aware of Michael when he posted to Nextdoor saying, "Hey, I'm moving to the area and I lead hikes. I lead nature hikes." And I filed away in my brain, wow, that's wonderful. I need to meet this fellow and I hope to go hiking with him someday. So, Michael, that's how I know of you. And I'd like to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Michael and a major nature enthusiast. I've been surrounded by nature all pretty much my life. Um, and I felt that there was a massive need within the community to have hikes that are way slower paced and lots more stops to really dig into nature and open up those hidden doors that a lot of people pass up and have a better understanding for nature, which can really help support nature as a whole.
There's so much here, and I'm excited that we're going to get started talking about it. But I want to just see, in terms of peace verbs, you are somebody who spends time with the land and with trees and other plants. And I'm hearing you talking about pacing, and I think in life in general, we're in a human culture that tends to emphasize speed and productivity and a certain pace. And what you're saying is there's much to be noticed when we slow ourselves down, when we allow for the movement. You're out there moving in nature, you're hiking, but you're slowing and you're providing a window. I think you did you say door or window? There's a certain sense of an opening, of a portal to connection that happens when we slow down in nature. So I'm really excited to hear more about this, and I'm noticing even the pace of conversation. I'm going to do my part to slow down a little bit so that I can, I think, maybe be a little bit more in tune with what you're talking about. So, what is a nature hike with Michael like?
Um, Good question. Sorry for the background sounds. Um, Very good question, and I love the fact that you're talking about slowing down and how society has kind of gotten so quicker paced with a lot of things. And when you slow down, you're opening up a whole nother door of insight, and that goes with a lot of things, especially with conversation, but with nature too. Uh, and when you're given that key of insight to a particular thing that might be going on a hike, like oak galls, for example, which are part of the gall wasp, that them and the oaks create this gall. But when you open up something like that and you start noticing these galls in leaves and different types of galls, and you open up a whole nother world. And that was done through slowing down, and observing and looking at things. And that's a lot of what my hikes are really truly about. And then also, as well as playing detective, you can figure out where the wind is coming from generally by looking at how the tree's roots, the upper roots, are structured. You can use trees as compasses. You can see what trees are in certain locations versus other locations to how high you are. So there's so
Can,
much to learn out there.
can I slow you down a little bit here and ask
Absolutely.
you to? Okay, thank you. Um, uh, so you're hearkening back to my days in college, taking a tree ecology class, and then I was a summer camp counselor the following year and was looking around and noticing certain trees grow on the north slope and they're different than the trees that grow on the south slope. And so I think when you're saying a tree is a compass, it could be something like that. When you're saying a tree shows you which way the prevailing winds travel, can you tell us a little bit more about that? You were mentioning tree roots.
Well, first off, the compass concept is yes, there is trees that are on the south more often, and then there's trees that are more often on the north, like the black oaks are more favored of the north. But when you look at it from a tree as a compass, a tree
Mm,
is actually going to reach itself out to more in an area to where it's receiving a lot of the light.
mm,
So if it's in an area that's open, it's going to tend to reach its branches out more towards the south.
mm-hmm.
So it's sweeter south. And this can go deeper into other things like flowers and so on. Um, but it's hard to explain because you have to look at it. But the way the branches are and how they reach out, see if I are viewers going to be able to see what's behind me?
Yes, if you scoot yourself over to the side, and then and Michael is a photographer, and this is a tree that he photographed here. So okay, yeah, so we can see most of the tree now.
Okay,
Michael,
perfect.
yeah,
Um,
wow, what a photograph. So there's
yeah,
three trees here.
this is a Quercus lobata, valley oak.
Valley oak.
And you can tell that a lot of the branches here are reaching more towards the right than they are, well, I guess from my view, but you
This
can
way,
see where the branches are leaning more towards.
right. There's more of them. You see that there's more of them on one side than there are on the
Yeah.
other. Yeah.
And this is in an
Yeah.
open area, so it would be perfect. Plus, the trees are older, so they've
Ah.
been there for a longer amount of time,
Uh huh.
and they've had a better, longer existence to adapt. And that's
Mm.
just one thing that you can utilize to understand the direction from south to north.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's really obvious where you're any barely getting any branches on the north, but you're getting a whole bunch reaching out to the south.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And and
go
so I
ahead.
imagine you take people out who, I mean, so many people are, if they're hiking, they're probably thinking about how many calories am I going to burn, how much time do I have before I have to get back to my car, and so you're saying, wait a second, there's a whole world here. There's a world here, and there's a communication. There's communication happening. There's awareness happening, and look at this tree that has the awareness to grow in a direction that is sustaining. And so there's I feel like I'm hearing you say there's a language that's being spoken all around us
Hmm.
that we can start to learn how to listen to.
Yeah, and listen to nature because that link and these things that are you start noticing similarities, and then you're just taking those similarities and you're keying them in um, into okay, I'm seeing this and I'm also seeing it here and I'm seeing it here. Um,
So there's patterns.
yeah, those patterns.
And
And
have you always been in the San Francisco Bay Area? Is
yeah,
this is so this is your natural world,
yeah, yeah.
and seeing the patterns. So if you could back us up a little bit, you were mentioning that you've always been around nature, and I can tell that you know a lot about the names of different plants. I'm hearing you use both the Latin name for the valley oak and also the more common name. And can you tell us a little bit about your journey, like how you started out being exposed to the natural world and what pathway you've taken to learn what you know?
Sure, absolutely. This I'll try to start off because this is a pretty good journey, so I'll just do the best I can. Um, so uh, when I was a child, we lived in Fremont for roughly about 8 years. So things in Fremont were drastically different then than they are now. It's
Mm,
definitely
mm-hmm,
built up quite a bit. And then we moved from my 8 year period. We moved up in Clipper Hill Road, which is basically nestled right in the backside of Los Trampas, right there. The Gene O'Neill house was just um, didn't have to go too far, just over a canyon and up and over. Um,
So is Las Trampas wilderness for people that don't live around here?
yes, so Los Trampas Wilderness is part of the East Bay Regional Park System, and it is a fairly large park and one of the most visited parks we have in the East Bay Regional Park System.
And for people that don't live around here, the East Bay Regional Park System is actually a vast collection of natural areas here in and around a very urbanized greater Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. So the East Bay is on the Oakland side of the San Francisco Bay.
Yep. And the East Bay Regional Park is one of the finest park systems we have in California, in the US, and it would definitely be comparable to some of the stuff that's out there in the world
We're very
with
lucky.
how well they've done.
And so around age 8, you moved to the edge of the wilderness.
Yes, you're really good at tying things in. Um,
That's my job.
um, so yes, I moved into the wilderness, and we had trees all around us. We had lots of California bay, laurel. We have lots of oaks, tons of oak woodlands. We had valley oaks like this one behind me. We had blue oaks. We had black oaks, big leaf maples. So we had a lot of trees all around the whole house. It looked like we lived in a tree house. It was so many trees.
Did you get to climb the trees?
Oh
Some of
yeah,
them?
yeah. I did a lot of things with my brother, running around and climbing and playing fort and war, things that boys do. Um, Throwing California Buckeyes at my brother, and
Oh
now
my
I'm sitting
gosh,
there
I want
talking
to
about
travel
it.
back in time and join you for that childhood. It sounds perfect,
It
as my
definitely
definition
was.
of childhoods go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we didn't have a lot of TV time, that's for sure. We woke up and we were just so enthusiastic about going out in nature and just exploring new places.
No, so you're amongst all of these trees. You've named them. When you were a little boy, did you were you already learning the names, or were you taking in the essence of the tree? So for example, a bay laurel smells amazing. Were you saying, oh, this shiny leaf tree that smells amazing is different than this brambly huge tree that's got rough bark? Or like, what was your experience at that point in your life of these trees?
I think I was remembering the smells a lot more as a kid. So the smells of the California bay laurel, the smells of the valley oak leaves, since they're deciduous, so they lose their leaves in the fall, and the smell that they would reminisce is something that I remember more as a kid. As far as the names go and stuff, but that didn't really start coming in until way later. Um, when the 1989 earthquake hit, um, that rattled the Bay Area, I was up there in the woods and I didn't feel it at all. Or most people tell their experiences of the shaking and where they were at that very time in the Bay Area. But I was on a tire swing,
Oh wow.
um, and I was swinging back and forth, and I was held by a tire swing was tied up on a very, very large valley oak. Um, and I know it was a valley oak because I'm imaging the leaves and stuff that I saw in that memory, and I can detect the leaves and the shapes. So it's hard to explain. But that was an experience because I wasn't feeling it, but I was seeing it. I can
Oh
see
my
that the
goodness.
roof was blowing, like it looked like a heavy wind had come by, and that's all I was recognizing it as a kid. Oh, there must be some large wind that's just pushing through all of a sudden.
Wow. And
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 I,
so just you said you grew up in Fremont, correct? And
mhm.
so you're like miles away from the Hayward Fault.
I was well at this time when it happened. By then I was living in Danville.
Oh, in Danville, and yet still miles away. All of us were
Yeah,
miles away from
yeah.
an earthquake fault, right? So you saw the earthquake, and yet you were suspended in a swing from the air, and so there's a certain amount of being cushioned by the other direction of gravity, being held from the upward side of things in something that's already moving. And you saw the earthquake. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, so just witnessing everything happening. We had a large house. My dad was a CEO of a major marketing company, so he was barely ever home and was making a ton of money. So we lived in this big house,
Hmm.
and you'd see the large roof that was just rattling and just this wind pushing through, and I couldn't recognize what was happening,
Mm-hmm.
but I was feeling such a massive amount of comfort and support. I felt completely safe being underneath this tree.
Wow. Wow. I think we need to pause on that for a moment. you know, um, in a really big way, actually, because with all of the changes, I guess, let me back up for a moment. When you live in California, it's kind of like our fellow humans that live under Mount Vesuvius over in Italy. You kind of know that there always could be something, in terms of plate tectonic movement. You know there could always be an earthquake. And I think at this point in time, living in California, but pretty much living anywhere where we're seeing global warming show itself and we're seeing the massive changes in Earth that are happening, the fact that you knew you were held by a tree is profound. And so I think it speaks to the holding that Mother Earth does for us and also the holding that trees do for us. So forgive me if I'm putting too much of my own emotion and my own mind into this, but that is what I'm hearing you say, and I would really like to hear more.
Well, first off, I want to stop as well, and I want to appreciate the fact that you're telling me what you are and you're utilizing the emotion that comes with that in the way that you deliver it to me. I can definitely feel that channel. And that to me is a huge inspiration. The more people that do that, the better we are as a whole.
Thank you, Michael, and likewise.
Um, so yeah, feeling that sense of comfort. And now I look upon it, and I'll continue on with the journey, but I look upon it now from where I am in my place at this journey that I'm taking from from then, and I realized it was a key importance to why that tree was holding me.
Oh my goodness, tell us more.
Um, so as I progressed from eight and through my years, and there was a lot of things that made it very difficult for me to socialize, and I have lots of struggles and stuff throughout my life, as we all have our own struggles. Um, I kept going back to nature and wanting to embrace with nature. Um, and as I got older and past my 20s, I started taking classes at DVC and learning horticulture. And I
And
took
so,
classes.
sorry to
Go ahead.
interrupt you. Since we have an international audience, I'm just going to pause for a moment and mention that's Diablo Valley College. It's the junior college, the community college network here where Michael and I live, and they have a fantastic horticulture program. And so you were taking horticulture classes there.
Yeah. And then it's different than it is now. They've put a ton of money in their department. That's a great school. Um, and at the time, I was taking classes with several different teachers, different types of classes, from the soils to plants
Hmm.
to all the IDs and so on. And I took a class with a gentleman named Stu Winchester, who's not teaching there anymore, but he was an amazing man. Very, very, I just pull stuff out of a book without having the book there, and just left and right. And we were doing 12 to 15 plants a week.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
and he
So
had
there's
this
something, there's
go
something,
ahead.
sorry to interrupt you again, but there's something, and by the way, here in this room, there's my initial list of peace verbs. In 2017, I was just obsessed and I was carving them out of paper and putting them on the wall. But somewhere up in there is the verb teach, and so you're speaking of a really sacred connection between a teacher and a student. And you said it's basically you had a living book with you right there, that and you were identifying plants, and so this knowledge is pouring into you through this relationship with a very special person. So this, you said his name was Stuart?
Stu Winchester.
Stu Winchester. Thank you. Okay, sorry
Mm-hmm.
to interrupt.
No, it's quite okay. It teaches me to slow down.
Oh no, no, and it's it's the whole premise of this conversation is looking for the peace verbs.
Oh, well, no, absolutely. I mean, by you looking at it, it's explaining to me that you really are taking a lot of care into what I'm saying. You're dissecting everything, which is fantastic.
Thank you. So you're at DVC with Stu Winchester, and you're identifying plants. You said 15 a week, so
Yeah,
you're becoming an encyclopedia in your mind of awareness of the world around you through, I'm imagining, like how many petals, how many leaves, what configuration of the leaves on the stem, is it hairy, is it smooth,
yeah,
how many seeds, etc., etc. So a lot of detail.
yeah. The botanical name, its origin, um, all that stuff. And I think that most of it that I took within that class is kind of came in and went because I wasn't really really embedded in it as much as I am now.
Or because I'm looking over at another verb on the wall, let go of being perfect and right.
Yes.
And then also there's something about the short-term and the long-term memory formation process in the brain, the synapses that connect for a short-term memory versus the ones that connect for a long-term memory require repetition. So maybe you're breezing through them and coming back to them in your later adult life now, where you're actually delving, then they're cementing into the long term memory.
So
So I'm
definitely
sorry, I
what,
got you off track.
no, he did
Continue.
not. Basically what you're saying is that it had a tremendous purpose.
Yes. So your tree, so the tree that's holding you in the 1989 earthquake, you mentioned that it had a very big purpose in holding you safe in that moment. Can you tell us more about that? So we've moved through a young adult life. You're now at DVC. You're learning plants. Does it come back to the tree, to the valley oak?
Um, it doesn't yet.
Okay, I will be
Um,
patient.
yeah, it doesn't yet. Um, and and as I go through and take the classes, and I was there for many years, and I got into really wanting to go back to DVC and take classes and learn, and I hit a speed bump. Um, this is a real key message for anybody listening because it's a good blueprint to help lift.
And I think also, Michael, and sharing speed bumps for people who are facing them out there listening, they know they're not alone, and they also know that there's motion on the other side of the speed bump or a light at the end of the tunnel. So thank you so much for sharing what you're about to share. It matters. It really does.
Thank you. Um, I was taking a class at DVC with a teacher, and the class was not based off of plants. It was based off of, I think it was Asian history or Chinese history. And I remember taking this class, and um, I had already taken a variety of different classes, and I've been there for several years. And we sat in the class, and it was probably about 45 students or so. And the teacher had a TA who showed up before the teacher showed up, and then he showed up about 15 minutes late. And I don't know what this teacher's name is, but it really doesn't matter. Um, and he spoke about Asian history and went through several different things about it. And then the second class I attended, we had to take a kind of like a little quiz. So I struggled with all my life with a severe learning disability and dyslexia and a multitude of other things through trauma and abuse and so on. So for somebody like myself to even take that step and say, "Hey, I'm going to go to school and I'm going to do what I can to to study to the best of my abilities," is a tremendous amount of courage.
Yeah, I want to say that was the word that was coming to me and listening to that. Absolutely. Absolutely a tremendous amount of courage. So you're in that environment facing your mountain that you're climbing.
Mm-hmm. And and I don't want anybody to get the wrong impression because DVC's got great teachers, phenomenal departments, great programs. Um, but I sat in the class, we took the quiz, and I answered the quiz to the best of my ability. And we go back on what you had mentioned before. You people get caught up like myself and being in the mindset of I always have to be right. I've got to be right. I can't. All these other people around me are
Right.
seeming like they know um, what the class is about or the stuff that we're going to be talking about, dynasties or whatever it might be. Um, so I had a huge amount of insecurity with just that alone before I even put the pin on the paper to do that quiz. Um, and I take the quiz to the best of my ability and send it off to the TA. And the third class we take, he's graded all the quizzes, and he hands them back to all the students, one row after the next. And my quiz falls onto my table almost like a feather. And on this white piece of paper with my handwriting that looks like something done by a doctor, so I'm already judging myself by just looking at that handwriting. And the writing on that piece of paper was bold, big, and in red. And that writing said, "There's no hope for you here."
Oh my God. Wow. That's no way to write on anyone's piece of paper ever in any kind
No.
of educational institution.
So I really took a step back within my thoughts and even pushed back a little bit from my chair. Like, is this really, really happening? Is this what I'm really actually seeing? Is my dyslexia just flipping the words around and making it look like something it really is not?
Oh, wow, right. So you're actually just trying to take in the reality of the
Take
moment
it all
and
in
yeah.
and be optimistic as much as possible.
Right. Right. Especially considering you didn't have to put yourself in school, but you did
Mm-hmm.
with a great deal of courage. So here you are in school in this moment.
So when I'm trying to piece everything together and trying to be optimistic about it, the teacher takes his finger and puts it on the words. And I can feel the rumbling and the sound of that desk radiate through the wood. And he looks at me and he says, "Well, it's true. There is no hope for you here."
Oh my goodness.
So now I have a complete confirmation that what is on the paper was 100% true, because the person that had stated it, not real truth, but it is what it is.
Accurate communication from this person to you
Yeah,
is another
thank
way
you.
we could say that. Yeah.
um and my heart sank,
Oh,
and
yeah.
the feeling going through my stomach. And once this process had happened, everything inside um, began to shake.
Mm-hmm.
Sweat kicked in, and my body was shaking.
So you're having an earthquake in your own physical being.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
And I needed that oak for comfort.
yeah.
Um, so I took I went back in my seat and was trying to figure out at that moment, what am I going to do?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was receiving the messages like the teacher wanted me to just leave the class.
Mm-hmm.
And I continue on with the class for about 20 minutes. And that's what I did. I
Mm-hmm.
got up, grabbed my bag,
Mm-hmm.
and I walked out of the class.
Mm-hmm.
There was nobody in my defense. There was um, nothing to make me feel comforting at that time. And I was still very young, so I
Mm-hmm.
was still learning how to cope with the stuff that I had to cope with through my life.
Right.
Um,
Right. And wait, sorry. Can we pause on that for a moment for our
for camp.
younger listeners? Younger listeners out there, it gets better. You're not supposed to have it all figured out in your 20s. You really, really aren't. And your path does unfold in front of you, even if you can't figure it out now, and even and especially if the people around you can't see how you fit in. You do, and we need you, and we're really glad that you're trying. So that was, I felt an important message to share with whoever's listening to this who can relate to that feeling. Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it don't let anybody push you down, and be yourself to who you know you are. You don't need to impress anybody. Um, and life is gonna throw you all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but there is always hope, and there's light as you continue on through that journey. Um, because what I find really, really turn things for the better.
Thank you for sharing with such courage that difficult moment in your life. Thank you.
Thank you for receiving and listening.
You're welcome. And actually, just to take a moment and notice a couple of peace verbs in action in this very moment, allowing oneself to be witnessed is a peace verb, and witnessing is a peace verb. So, very important.
This is awesome. I'm linking in and connecting with all your peace verbs without actually
Yeah,
visually
yep.
seeing it.
Yeah.
Um, so I pretty much put a standstill to school at that moment and went through a whole lot of life, um,
Right.
and learning and lessons, because what I had went through at that moment was a huge lesson, um, that I learned.
And so, like, sometimes when we get these big lessons in life, we don't recognize them as a lesson quite yet. At first, they feel like a smack in the face or a punch in the gut or some kind of awful trauma. It takes a lot of digestion to get to the point that we realize it's a lesson and a character building moment. Isn't that true?
Yes, very much so. Very much so. And there's no set time where you have to, okay, well, you have to know these lessons in 30 minutes or a year. It's no set time. It'll come when it comes.
Right timing, practicing
Yep.
right timing, absolutely.
Yep. Um, so after going through DBC, I definitely took a seat back
Mm-hmm.
and became an incredible observer. Um, with the world around me.
The human world
Um,
as well. Am I understanding correctly? You mean the human world as well as the
yeah,
natural world?
yep. Um, so I years later, when I got into my late 30s, I was on a hike in San Ramon, which is a city in the East Bay, in a park called uh, Bishop Ranch Open Space.
Okay.
There's a whole lot of magic in there.
Really?
Yeah,
All
a
right.
whole lot.
I need to go. And just to mention, so here in the Bay Area, there were, as the Europeans settled, a lot of ranches, and so a lot of our before we're now turning a lot of our land into city space or suburban area, but to be called Bishop Ranch open space is it must be harkening back to the Bishop family that ranched the land, right? And so in the process of ranching, most trees were kept intact, but a lot of native grasses were pushed out with, European. I want to say oat. There's a lot of oat out there, but at any rate, so you're in Bishop Ranch, and Bishop Ranch must have some old trees. I'm assuming.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's definitely some old trees that are dating back even before the ranchers were there. So you're getting a lot of that indigenous people energy.
Wow. Yeah.
And I had been there prior before a multitude of times, but now I am returning with this curiosity and this awakening of trying to understand the what's around me and in that park. Um, and there's a lot of different types of oaks in that park
And
that
by this time, you probably can identify them, right? You've
yeah,
had the
yeah,
botany classes, so you can tell names of different oaks. Yeah.
yeah. And a lot of the oaks and stuff, the knowledge that I picked up on oaks and identifying them and the botanical names and stuff was all stuff that I did off self-teaching. um,
So once you got the basic skill set from your mentor Stu, then you could take it from there basically, and look through the manuals and study the plants yourself.
yeah, for the most part. um, and a lot of like a lot of like what I learned was all from some Stu Winchester, and of course, incredible woman, amazing inspiration, Beth Cobalt, who is my mother-in-law, who taught me a ton as well. And I'd always bring her into locations or send her photos and so on. Um, just to kind of briefly give people an idea, the photo apps that they have, you take a photo and it IDs the plant and so on.
Yeah.
They're 50-50. And sometimes even less than that. You're not gonna hit the mark with those things. But you got books or you have insight that you can go to. Those are your friends. Because the photos and stuff on the phone, you're not slowing down. You're taking a photo and then you're seeing it and saying, oh, it's this. Okay, on to the next thing. But when you're not doing it that way, you're taking samples, you're looking at them, you're holding on to them, you're observing them, you're bringing books over there. Okay, this is what it is. You're reading about it, you're learning it. Now that stuff's really coming in there, and that's going to help
Right.
you better understand it.
So it's the time you're spending with it, but you're also talking about touch. You know,
Touch.
you're taking a leaf home with you. You're taking a twig home with you. You're opening a book. So there's so much relationship in that. There's the relationship to the person that wrote the book and drew those. I mean, not photographed, drew the botanical illustrations. So they're paying extreme attention, and now you're paying attention, and there's this relationship across time between you and them and this plant that you're meeting.
Yep.
Yeah.
um so I open up to one of the trails, and Bishop Ranch Open Space has a large amount of California black oaks, which
Okay.
are the doorway to when I really started getting really into oak trees. And I went from really liking redwoods to just being in the moment when I'm around oak trees. I just love them. Um, and California black oaks, at this moment, it was in the fall, and they make this transition of just beauty. And they do it in such a beautiful way, more than you see from the other oaks in the Bay Area. Not
In,
the
in
oaks
terms
in the East Coast are
of
different.
fall colors, is that what you mean?
Yes, your fall colors are just vibrant. You get a lot of orangey yellow color, and it's very visible. Um, so when you see one of them, um, they're just really showy display, and the acorns have a ton of fat and a ton of protein, but a lot more fat. So they were really praised within the indigenous people of being a great barter acorn. So they bartered that all the way up into
A
Oregon.
barter acorn. I love it. I love it because of the nutritional value and the fat.
Yeah,
It's like it's, you know, of all the things to barter, isn't that great? Fat. I mean,
even a
it's
huge
just
food
so
source.
immediately important, right?
Very much so. And they barter other acorns too, but that was
Wow.
the gold.
And anyone who has not been around an oak tree probably doesn't realize the abundance of acorn that come off of one tree. It's
Yep,
phenomenal.
yep.
Yeah.
Thousands,
Yeah.
thousands. And just in within those acorns that are created, it's they're I can talk about it later, but there's a whole communication that goes on down below that's sending information from tree to tree and telling the trees to, hey, we need a little help with water, we need a little bit more nutrients, I'm going to send that back over to you.
Now,
It's incredible.
uh, I tend to spend a lot of time with tree people. Um, I am a tree person, so I have heard of this before. Um, and there's definitely science catching up with this reality,
Mm-hmm.
right? But were you aware of this before you read about it from a scientific perspective, this communication and sharing between trees?
I actually didn't really get too much into finding out about it until about a year or so ago. There was a Netflix thing on mushrooms.
The network, is it the mycelia between trees and how
Yep,
mushrooms connect forests? And it's just, oh, it's so encouraging, isn't it? It's so encouraging that that's what's happening, and us humans could really take note from that.
absolutely. And what's I'm gonna just slow it down here for just a second. What's really key about the mushrooms is that they hide constantly. So you don't see them a lot. And they're kind of like that kid in the back of the class that didn't talk much, that everybody kind of made fun of, and they're
Yeah.
playing this massive role in the
Oh,
communication.
wow. Wow.
The
So
transition, the all that stuff is
just
from,
holding,
nutrients from here to there. It's just because of these mushrooms that are just boom.
wow. Wow. So the story picks back up at Bishop Ranch and with the Blue Oaks, and the Blue Oaks
The black
who
oaks.
Black Oaks. Thank you,
It's okay.
Black Oaks. So the
Blue oaks are
California
cool
Black
too.
Oaks that have really nice, nutritious, fat acorns and were used as bartering all the way up into Oregon.
Um, yeah. Um, so I'm out there and I'm looking around and witnessing just this beauty of all these vibrant yellow and orange colors all around me. And California black oaks tend to be more um, diverse within the tree community, where they'll really be acceptant of other trees around them.
Oh, okay. Okay, so they cohabitate with other species of trees.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And a lot of oaks do that too, but blacks tend to do it a lot more. The black oaks will tend to be more um, intermixed with other trees. So you're not going to see them too often with larger communities that often,
Mm-hmm.
except for places like Bishop Branch.
Okay.
Um,
Interesting. So they tend to be the lone oak. Like they tend to be more like a one of in a community of different trees rather than a whole hillside of the same kind of tree.
yeah, tend to be, but they still can be uh, in a good gathering. But it's more intermixed with other trees, and they're really not lone. I mean, it's kind of like they're all connected in their own way. They're all playing these vital roles.
Mm-hmm.
Um, where the blue oaks is they tend to be masses of them together.
Interesting.
Uh,
Okay.
um, so I'm seeing all these colors, and I'm like, what are these trees? Like,
Hmm.
I don't remember reading about them. I don't know what they are. I know they're some type of oak,
Mm-hmm.
and I hadn't opened up the doorway of oaks yet. I didn't. This is when it all started. Um, and I continue to walk along this path that almost looked like something out of a storybook.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so here I
And you
am
were
as
so sorry to interrupt you. You were mentioning magic. So you're feel there's some kind of energy, there's some kind of energetics happening here that's different than other places that you tend to be.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, this place particular, and also Marker 32 in Ohlone, which is another story. But
Okay.
there's a few places that I definitely feel a vibrance of energy,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
more so than some of the other places, although they all are important.
Yeah.
Um, and I can't. I'm so it's just taking it all in. I'm just like, wow, this is so just incredible. I've got to come back up here with my mother-in-law. I've got to bring her up here.
Oh, okay. So your mother-in-law and you have a special connection around places, wild places,
Yes,
and
big time.
plants.
She's an avid
Wow.
hiker. We've done a lot of backpacking together.
So you
Um,
scored a great wife and a great mother-in-law all in one
yep,
package.
yeah.
Wow.
So I bring her back, and she's familiar with the park, and we go out there, and I'm like, what are these trees? What are these? She's like, oh, these are California black oaks. Tell me more. Well, there's black California black oaks. If you see the leaves, so she's kind of showing me the leaf. I'm like, well, tell me more. And she's like, well, I don't. She's not able to give me too much. I was like, well, so what about this tree over here? This is different. So, well, that's a valley oak.
Hmm.
But sometimes they hybridize. Well, what does that mean? Well, sometimes
Really?
they'll hybridize within each other to create a hybrid oak. And they've been
Wow.
doing this for well over 35 million years.
Sure. 35
Uh,
million years?
well, oaks have been here for about 50 million, but they started hybridizing in about 35 million years, roughly, North
Oh my
America.
goodness.
Yeah.
So how long have humans been around?
Oh, good question.
Not that long.
No. Yeah, they've been here for a while because they're embedded within the oak trees, and how the oak trees came about have got old ancient evidence of oceans and biology within that oceans that they've been created off of.
Wow.
Um,
So you're feeling a magic in this place. You're learning that these oak trees can actually hybridize between each other.
mhm.
And then what next?
So I'm asking these questions, and she's doing her best to answer, and I'm just rolling this stuff off.
Because you're
Um,
feeling really drawn to this. Like
oh
there's
yeah,
something about this you have to
huge.
dive into.
And she kind of like shrugged her shoulders, like, I don't know. It's just they just do this, and she's not able to kind of go further, which I was okay with. But now I know what these are,
Hmm.
and now I know what they are. I can take this to the next level and continue wonderful journey of knowing more about these oak trees.
So there's something powerful and important about naming something, someone. So it's not just that you can walk amongst these trees and say, "Wow, tree, cool," but what's your name? What's your name? And then to learn a name and how important that is somehow.
Definitely, definitely, and having to know that name, the botanical name or just the common name of the tree is one step. But then when you get to the next step of, this is the grandmother oak, or this is this, or you visit these trees regularly to check up on them.
So you come back to your friends. So you meet them for the first time, and then you mentioned, in our little pre-chat before having this conversation, coming back to trees. So
Hmm.
are these some of the trees that you come back to?
Yep, yep. I visit Bishop Ranch maybe 3 or 4 times a year.
And so there's so many verbs here. When you get to a tree that you're coming back to visit, do you stop and sit with it? Do you walk by it? Do you pause? Like what is that? What is the verb there that is visiting a tree?
Um, I walk up and I definitely sit next to the tree and just embrace all that it has to offer. Um, and just be in that sense of comfort. And when I get even deeper into that, um, I can gain access to memory, and memory from me and memory from the tree.
Very important. And I know that this is not a conversation that one can have easily with many different humans, that there is a lot of what could you be talking about, how could that be? And yet when you do find your way to another human who can embrace the familiarity of what you're saying, how yet another doorway can open up into a conversation. So I embrace that. I embrace what you're saying, and I am very interested in understanding and hearing more about your experience of that. So you're slowing down. You're coming back to a tree that is calling to you. So calling to you to the point that you are peppering your mother-in-law with questions, and she gets to the point where she doesn't know anymore, and it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like she's handing it back to you. You go explore, you figure
Take
this
the
out.
torch.
And so you're going
Yep.
back to the tree and you're listening, and I imagine that there's another piece verb there, which is you're opening, right? You're opening your senses and you're opening your heart and you're listening, but not just with your ears. So what are these portals? What are these memories?
Um, well, the memories are memories of either from my past as a child that I'll tend to resonate with a lot. And then also I've gained the memories of the tree, if the time is right. Um, and also I always ask for permission before entering to the larger elder trees.
So
And
as you're approaching, then you ask them permission to approach.
yep,
Yeah. So
and
very
permission to
important.
gain access to a particular area.
So very
Uh,
important. And I want to also ask a question, and you can certainly answer it in whatever order, but there's got to be an element of reciprocity here too. So what do you give, or what do we give to trees? What is our capacity to give back to a tree that is offering a gift to us?
I think our capacity to give from a tree that's giving back to us, it is it's a love, an appreciation, and an understanding, which is a true foundation that we can use to help protect our ecosystem.
So it's an honoring, it's a witnessing, and it's a call to action.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And these are truly our elders.
Mm-hmm.
And in a culture that we may not really embody to the extent that other cultures do, the concept of honoring the elders. And so you're speaking of an honoring ceremony. So you're approaching a tree and you're asking permission. And have you ever had them say no?
Yep.
And then you say thank you and you move along, right?
Yep. Um, Ohlone Wilderness is a very sacred land, which is not Bishop Ranch, but it's another part of the East Bay Regional Park. And Ohlone Wilderness is over in the backside of Livermore.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge,
Hmm.
and it connects with Del Val, and it connects with Sunol, and then that connects into Mission Peak.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ohlone Wilderness is part of the Mount Diablo Range, which is Rose Peak there. But what I'm getting at is that there's a grandmother blue oak in Ohlone Wilderness that from the parking lot hiking up there is about 2 miles. But once you want to get into Rose Peak, it's a 20-mile journey of well over 5,000 feet. So it's work. You got to do to get in there, and there's lots of up and down. But I'll ask her for permission. And I was doing some wanting to go up there and do a hike from not to Rose Peak to get to a particular location that I call Marker 32. All of Ohlone Wilderness, the trail markers that they have are the ones that are on the Ohlone Trail, which they call OT, are numbered.
Okay.
And you'll have 32, 33, and so on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'll ask them, Grandmother Blue, to gain access to Ohlone Wilderness. And once I do this, she is surrounded by a lot of other blue oaks. And she almost appears to be like a grandmother. And she lays her hands, her branches down, and they're touching the ground. So when I arrive, it's basically like a woman that's resting her hands down and facing me in this huge canopy. So I'll approach her and push my hand up against the bark, and I just sit and really embrace that moment. And then I ask for permission to gain access to where I need to go and protection as well. And this one particular time, I was going up there to get back from after we had the 2020 fire, because some of the trees had burned down, some of the oaks had burned down. So I wanted to go and check it out after they open it back up.
Yeah.
And I asked for permission.
You asked Grandmother Oak for permission.
Okay. Grandmother Blue Oak for permission, and she said no. So
did you ask her why?
Most of the time when I ask questions in regards to why, or try to get more into it, it's usually just silence, and then the response will come through wind. So I took a step back and I called off going up there. So I came back the next week with a friend of mine and returned to do this 20-mile journey to get up to Rose Peak, where I can go and check out what the fire had done, and I go back to Grandmother Blue.
And sorry, let me interrupt you for just a moment. So when you're asking permission and you're hearing an answer, this is an internal conversation, correct? You're sensing. It's like you with your inner eyes or your inner ears. So you ask with your thoughts and you receive a thought back.
Yeah.
Correct? Okay.
Yeah.
For people that don't do that, I thought it was worth taking a moment to explain. That's how it's done.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. So you're back the week later and you have a human friend with you at this point in time.
Yeah, I have a human friend with me, and he waited for me as I asked for. He was waiting near the trail, and then I went to go ask for permission. And I went back and asked for permission again. My grandmother blew, I have returned.
Can you see her at this point in time, or she's 20 miles inland from where you are?
No, I'm with her physically,
Oh,
completely.
okay, okay. So you see
Yeah.
her, and you're
Because she's
asking
kind of
her.
like the gateway to
She's the
getting
gatekeeper.
into, yeah.
Okay, got it.
Um, and I asked her permission to grant me access to Ohlone Wilderness and protect and give me safety. And I asked the water supply if it's minimal or not, because we had to carry 7 liters of water. I had to carry 7 liters of water with me
Right,
to get in there, because I
right.
was aware that there was less water for sure, and she said that it was minimal.
Okay.
But I said, okay, well, thank you so much. So you offer protection and safety to enter, and you allow me to enter. And she said, yes. Be quick.
Be quick.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
So I said, oh man, we got to go 20 miles at over 5,000 feet, and she wants me to be quick. All right. So I went and entered with my friend and stashed several liters of water in one location. Water stashing is something that you can do to have a fallback. So if you end up getting into a creek and you don't have the water that you thought, you've got water stashing that you at these locations that you can fall back on.
So it's almost like when you're climbing, when you're rock climbing, if you've tethered yourself in a ways back, you know that you're safe. If you're continuing to climb up the face, you can at least go back down to that place. I'm just imagining. So it's something
It's
like
similar
that.
to
You
that,
go
yeah.
back to the water that's not too far back. It's not as far back as the car, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's not as far back as the car, and it's there when I do come back and make the wrong travel. I can not waste too much time with filtering the water if need be, because I did carry that on me. Water is a very critical element. Without
and
it,
and heavy and heavy.
yes,
So
and
you're
very
saying
heavy.
you can put it down and come back to it if the actual water in the creek is not there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll carry 5 in, and then I'll put 3, or I'll carry 4 in, and then I'll put 3 down and supply. And then my other friend had something like 3 or 4. So we continue on this journey, and when I continued on and we got further up there, um, the actually this was I'm trying to think it's the time of year. It was in the cusp of winter. That's right. It was still okay. So it was like cusp of winter and spring. So we got up. I thought it was fall or something. So we got up there, and the golden fields were everywhere. Something like out of Wizard of Oz, and just carpeted all across the upper part of 3,000 feet up.
Wow. So this is I don't know exactly what flower that is, but I'm imagining just a golden meadow in front of you.
Yeah, it's like a golden meadow, and they're real small flowers, and they're really tiny and small. But what they make up in size, they make up in mass together as a whole,
Wow.
and
Okay.
it's
Wow.
impressive.
Wow.
And we came across this, and they're just everywhere. And I'm like, wow, this is we gotta take just a little bit of time to kind of take some photos, or just to really embrace this.
Were you already a photographer, a professional photographer at
Yeah,
this point in time?
yeah.
Okay.
Which the light wasn't great, so I'm like, okay, I can take scout photos, but I'm gonna have to come back here and adjust that. Um, and then we experience all these golden fields, and we continue on up, and we're continuing through the Ohlone Wilderness Trail, and I'm eager to get to marker 32, which I thought was a black oak grove, but I was surprised with something even more special. We continue up, and we run into these, I think it was 3 or 4 ladies. For any of you listening out there, women they are some of the best hikers I know. And I've run into some real hardcore women before that are doing some incredible stuff. So ladies out there.
I'm just laughing because I am the slowest hiker. Anyhow, that's sorry. I digress.
That's
So,
okay. We all
so
have our own speed.
yeah, we do. So you run into these three or four women out
Three or four
there.
women that were backpacking out of there, and they came
Okay.
in from Sonol,
Okay.
and they were pushing into Del Val. So that was a long trek and a lot of elevation. And um, was like, how you doing? And talk to them, and it's like, these golden fields are just beautiful, aren't they? And she says, that you haven't seen it yet.
Wow.
Wait, that there's golden field? Oh no, there's a bigger amount up ahead. You'll see it.
Wow. Wow.
So I told her, I said, is there any damages between marker 32 with the fire damage? Did you notice any damage? No, is there something peculiar about marker 32? And I said, I don't have time. Which is really a bummer because I'd love to just sit there and
Because
ramble on
Grandmother
about
Oak told you, be
it.
quick.
So we get over the hill and the golden fields triple everywhere.
Are they a wildflower that comes in after a burn? Are they part of the burn ecology recovery?
They are definitely, you can definitely see them after a burn, but they tend to like a lot of the particular rock that's got a toxin in it.
Oh, the serpentine, maybe,
Serpentine,
huh?
thank you very
Okay,
much. Yeah,
sure.
they favor that quite a bit.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Because that serpentine rock will accept some flowers and not accept others,
Right. Right.
just to keep things in balance. Um, so we arrive and we finally get to 32. And I did run into a few black oaks before I had got to marker 32. And I have a very, very good friend of mine that is was part of the has I'm trying to think of this the best way, but she's a Miwok and a Loni. And I took a with permission, I took a two burned black acorns.
Okay. And permission, you're asking the tree. You're
Yep.
asking the land.
Which I was granted. So we got to 32, and 32 had a good amount of golden fields all around it, but right near marker 32 was this beautiful valley oak. And it was a shorter valley oak, but it was definitely well within 350, 400 years old. But it was shorter, and they usually are 100 feet tall, but it was shorter because the wind is heavier up there, so it's going to shorten the size.
Oh, okay. But the girth was, I'm sure, phenomenal.
Massive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it had this little hole nook at the bottom of it. And there was other types of little flowers around, and there was ground squirrels that were going in and out of this little hole back
Yeah.
and forth.
Yeah.
And it was so breathtaking. So I just kind of embraced the best I could with that tree and just all that was around it. We continued on to Rose Peak. And then once we got to Rose Peak, we came back, and I passed up that tree one more time and thanked it for its time. There was definitely a significant amount of fire damage, not within that tree, but the surrounding area. There's a lot of pines up there, and I knew that would really be a good fuel for the fire. So those pines took a big hit. But it stopped before it got to that tree, and that tree didn't get burned or the surrounding area.
Wow.
So I was really thankful that that didn't happen, because I was so worried about it. I spent several nights crying when that fire was going on.
So this is a tree you know from before. This tree that you're talking
This was
about.
a tree that this was the first time I'd gotten to marker 32, but this was a tree that I gained images, because Google gives you photos,
Sure.
And there's a particular hiker that goes up there, takes photos by the markers, and I'm
Okay.
able to get a panoramic.
So you had seen via the internet this
Hmm.
place,
And
and then so
studied
you.
it for like a year.
Okay. Okay. And so it's just amazing how our human world gives us connection through the like here we are, we're having a conversation, you're probably a few miles away, and rather than just sitting down together, we're talking here. So you're connecting with the tree over the internet, and then you're there in real life connecting with the tree. And because grandmother tree said get in, get out, that you don't have time to spend here, but you can make a heart connection nonetheless, and notice
Yep.
the magic and
Yeah.
the just incredible beauty of that place, the ground squirrels at the base of the tree, the wildflowers, the tree, and the burning. And so you're shedding tears and you're worried, and you're checking up on your friends that you know from the Google images, and yet you know them also by feeling them around you here in the Bay Area. So you're on your way back.
So I'm on my way back, and my friend has no idea that I've had this discussion, or that I was told that we need to hurry.
Okay. Okay. So you didn't say,
No.
wait a moment, I'm going to talk to the tree with your human friend.
He knew that I talked to a tree, and he kind of knew that I was having this relationship, but he didn't know that what she had said or what the information that I gathered from
Okay.
it.
Okay. All right. So but you're keeping the clip moving along. You're
Yep.
hiking quickly.
And um, we continue on, and we get over down into Williams Gulch, which is a huge gulch. And my friend's going to fill up some water down there. And he says to me, Mom, I'll just quickly fill up some water. And I said, well, I've got a stash just about 500 feet up.
Okay.
And he said, no, no, I'm going to fill up water here. I am, and I says, well, I'd advise against that because we've got a dead bird that just had died in that area to where he was filling up water in Williams Gulch.
Okay. And that just from the point of view of bacteria infection, we don't get our water from a place where there's a dead animal.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
even if you've got a filter, it's just to be advisable
Sure.
to not do so. But he was stubborn. He drank it and he did okay, but the bird had just died. Like what had happened? He was taken by probably a cat of some kind, um, and we were interrupting that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Um, and I didn't like that at all because that cat was probably watching us, and we were interrupting its dinner.
And when you say cat, probably you're talking mountain lion.
Mountain
So
lion
so
or a bobcat, yeah.
and so when you had asked for protection and safety, it was from that sort of a thing. I mean, mountain lions can be dangerous to humans, as humans can also be dangerous to mountain lions. But I think that's what you were. That would be the potential danger.
Yeah, well, mountain lions. It's a funny thing because they're so. And I've only seen 5 in my life, and that's saying something because most people that hike all the time never do,
And they see
and
you.
and they see me. Yep, they see you, and they go through extremes to avoid any contact.
Right.
But if I'm in an area where its food is right there, it's survival, and I'm dividing that.
Yeah.
Um, it might not be a good thing.
Right.
So I
Right.
started gathering messages, even though the tree was far. Like you need to go.
Move. Move. Right.
And I looked at my friend and I gave him a firm
Let's get out of here.
visual look and said, "We need to go now." Um, so he finished up with his water, and I said, "We're being watched." So he gathered his water. We went up. We went up the hill and got back, and I waved at the grandmother tree, and we were out. That was a deep branch off of one other conversation.
Well, but important, and getting back
Yes.
to does that bring us back to the being held by the tree and the earthquake?
Yeah, and that really does because with all this that's happening with being held and the earthquake and everything, and just kind of visualizing that, um, it it not only brought me back to that, but it also brought me into there's an importance and a deep connection that I have with oak trees.
With oak trees in particular.
Mm-hmm. That is going to just catapult in a positive way as I progress through this journey.
Hmm.
Um, and through that journey, I have met some incredible people. Um, and I have met some incredible elders of my own kind, that have really inspired me to do what I do. And I remember receiving messages from the Oaks. Okay, now that you appreciate us, look upon your own elders and listen to them,
Hmm.
and you'll receive a guidance through that. So I started working with the elderly community.
Mm-hmm.
I won't mention any names for their own privacy, but
Mm-hmm.
people that are blind
Mm-hmm.
and post polio and so on.
Hmm.
Um, and I have gained such a terrific insight because working with people that are blind, I'm not only I'm not really guiding them to saying, okay, well, I'm going to see for you. They're teaching me how to see.
Right, right. And so, you and I were just talking about having a conversation through your mind. And in the same way that we can speak through our mind, I'm sure we must also see through our mind. I mean, with our eyes closed, is what I'm trying to say. And so when you are around a human being that maneuvers through the world without their physical eyesight, you gain some perspective on that, I imagine.
Mm-hmm. Big time. And I'm seeing the world a whole nother way. Um, so by doing this, I had expressed my love and appreciation for oak trees through working with people, elders within our community. And one, they had two people in particular had come and gave me these books. They bought books of nature and stuff that I can learn and study and gain more knowledge from these books. And handed them to me, and that was such an insight to to gather this, and it's like, wow, somebody's taking such appreciation for me that I never really received from my childhood, and listening to me and getting books and learning about some incredible people that wrote these books, like Glenn Cater, Kate Marion Child. Um,
Are these horticulturalists?
yeah, so Glenn Keeter is a well-known well, botanist, plant expert, studied at UC Berkeley. The guy is a oak enthusiast. He's written several books on oaks, with just a lot of them having to do in the state of California, but also beyond that. He's a terrific man. He's written some incredible stuff. And then Kate Marion Child's a naturalist, who um, has books to kind of look at nature from a more deeper perspective, like the stuff that's going on. It's like in her books. It's like, wow, you wouldn't even realize. Um, and it's all fact too, a lot of fact. Um, but so I received these books, and it gave me the push to say, well, I'm going to start leading hikes. And I
Oh
realized,
yeah, yeah. Sorry. So you didn't always do that. There was like a
no,
time in your life that you were hiking,
no,
but you weren't taking other people, and
no,
so
yeah,
you've been gifted. So you say that you didn't get that witnessing as a child, but clearly you did from the trees. So the trees are witnessing you.
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
now you're at a point in your adult life where the elder humans are listening to you and honoring you with these gifts that are going, they're saying, I recognize this particular interest in you, and I'm going to feed your interest by sharing with you a book. So you have these books and you have these relationships, and then at that point, that gives you, I'm going to guess, the courage to say to the world, I'm leading nature hikes. Is there more to it than courage? Do you have to also get organized? Like, what is it that you're finding you have to do at that point in your life?
To be accepted, and and at that point, that was like the Gandalf sword. It was the acceptance that I needed, and the
That is
courage.
that is so so profound, and I can recognize that experience of moving from being the kid in the back of the class who's watching everyone else, and then to be, now you're up in front and people are appreciating you. And so the sword that's stuck in the stone that you can't get out, and all of a sudden it comes out, and in that profound moment of change. And to circle back to you and I talking to the person in the audience that we hope is listening, that we intuit is listening, don't give up on yourself. Let
Hmm.
it take whatever time it needs to take. And there's no right or wrong age by which that is supposed to happen. So there you are, and you're leading nature hikes.
Yeah, so I started leading these nature hikes. I led maybe a few prior before this, but with a huge gap of time, between it, and it was nowhere near like it is now. And I didn't know what I was going to do, how I was going to start, what I was going to talk about. I mean, what's going to happen when I I'm talking about what I've learned, and run into people that are going to challenge me. Of course, I'm going to run into people that are challenging me. It's going to teach me. Um, so I did it through meetups, and the first one that I did, where I was taking a suggested donation, um, at the time, well, I still am, but um, I had two people show up on the hike. I didn't know them, and they came through next door. And the first thing, this lady comes up to me and she looks at me straight in the eyes and she says, "Where'd you go to school?"
Oh, so she's
Um,
asking you for to show your credentials, basically.
yeah, and I got rattled. I will admit, I got rattled, but I definitely was not the same experience that I experienced younger in that
Right,
classroom when that teacher
right,
said, "There's no hope for you."
right.
Um, and I was like, "Oh, I went to BBC and I studied, there." And she was like, "Well, why do you love oaks so much? Well, what's the importance of oaks? Why do you love them so much?" So I'm still experiencing that rattled feeling, but I'm
Yeah.
able to deliver still. So we finish through the hike and we come back, and she hands me like $2, and she looks at me and she says, "Get educated."
Oh my goodness. So it's an echo of the Asian studies teacher,
Mm-hmm.
that energy. And
Yep.
yet I think it's useful, and this is a theme that comes through in some of the other interviews I've experienced so far, that you weren't back in the same place, you were spiraled. So it was a familiar feeling, a familiar moment, and yet you had traveled between that moment and the moment where you were. So there was more of you backing yourself up, and more self understanding, more self awareness, more of those relationships that you had with these other people, and the people that saw and honored you and gave you books. So you've got data, you've got data to support yourself in that moment, and you take this $2 from this lady. And so what do you do then? What's your emotional response at that point?
I take the $2. I thank her very much for the donation, put it in my pocket, and I knew I had a hike scheduled the next day. So I'm like, gosh, I'm like thinking, is this like, is this the first test here? This is what I'm gonna get. So, is there something that, I remember not being fully fluid in that moment.
Hmm.
And I'm a huge introvert. Um,
So that's
so
you're a huge introvert, so you're pushing yourself to hold space for strangers and share like the most intimate and sacred aspect of life with them. And so you're pushing yourself a lot. And so
yeah,
you're in this moment where you're like, okay, what do I do now?
what do I do now? And we continue on. She starts talking about these other hikes by other people from the Mount Diablo Interpretive Association and stuff. They're
Mm-hmm.
really educational and stuff. And I thanked her, and she went on her way. And I took a look back at a large valley oak that tends to be at this location where I was having the hike.
Mm-hmm.
And I get the sense and this feeling of see you tomorrow.
All right. All right. Yeah.
So the next group was different. It wasn't two people. It was, I think we had like 10 that day.
Wow.
Um, and it was so fluid. It was such a major eye opener. And I was very confident because now I feel confident. I'm fluid. And this is really what's going to get it going.
Mm-hmm.
And then the hikes just continue.
And
And I
so
start doing more of them.
there's something about fleshing out one's energy system with the rejection at like the first reaction being the rejection, and then you get it out of your system, and then your own energetics are fluid and moving and attracting the people that really can drink in the gift that you're giving. There's something about that. I don't know. I feel like when I first started doing the interview invitations, I got some no thank yous at first and felt, am I really supposed to be doing this? Right? So kind of flush it out of the system.
And here you are.
And here I am.
I love that you dissect things.
Thank you.
It's really, it makes you very unique. Um, when I'm feeling uh, insecurity, I'm not feeling confident, or I've got stuff that's rattling through my brain a lot, I'll take my hands and give it back to the tree, and the
Ah,
tree will take care of it for me.
ah. So they have a, so trees are inherently grounded, right? They reach
Yes.
up in equal measure to reaching down. And so, I think a lot about compost. I think that's why I studied soil science, is because I just love critters and all of the magic and alchemy that happens in the decomposition of things. And so you take this heavy energy and you give it to the tree. Are they grounding it for you? What are they doing?
They're taking it, they're grounding that energy, and then they're sending it off.
Okay, so they are recycling it
Mm.
to be used elsewhere.
Yeah.
And what incredible wisdom. We think of trees as being so many things, and we don't even scratch the surface of everything that they're actually doing here on this planet, do we?
Yes, they're so powerful. Um, and I continued to do more of these hikes, and I started getting 10, 14, 15 people. The wait lists were just, at this time of the season, wait list, I had 20, 25 person wait list.
Wow. Wow.
Um, and all these people showing up and doing all these hikes. And I did 4 falls hikes this year. Earlier this year, I did 4 falls hikes, and I had a particular hike where this girl had showed up, and she was studied at UC Davis. Phenomenal girl. Um, and she was a biologist, and she knew a lot about oak trees. And I'm having a lecture about a valley oak, and she stops me and really questions what I'm saying.
Hmm.
And at that point, I'm so in the zone and so fluid and so confident. All I'm thinking in my head was, well, I got the back for that. I can respond back to that in a comfortable way, and be able to provide where I'm coming from. Um, and that was so unique. And we had this, unique relationship all through the hike with this particular girl, but with everybody as a whole. And it just was like, wow, I cannot believe that I just was able to answer a question that was given to me from a biologist, and to do it so successfully and so fluid, and feel confident and still retain a good relationship all through the rest of the hike, as I was asking her questions and she was asking me questions.
And so it's like, we were talking about how those 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 speed bump moments in life, that punch us in the gut and slap us in the face, and we don't know how we get past them, and we don't see what's good about them. You can spiral to this place that you're being questioned and put on the spot in an academic kind of a setting, and you can see how much you've accomplished in that journey. And here you are, and it's turned into a positive experience rather than a negative experience. So you're being questioned, but it's actually it's a dialogue that's enriching and lifting everyone around you,
Mm-hmm.
and it's enriching the actual experience. And now you've got a conversation rather than just a lecture. And
Right.
what a neat, and so how wonderful it is to grow to the point that we get to see that come full circle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love seeing that circle.
And I mean, the other thing, Michael, is that I think another thing to celebrate with your story is that there are so many ways to learn. And we tend to emphasize a certain pathway as being legitimate, but that's not actually reality. And so you're talking about an embodied way of learning where you're going directly to the tree and you're asking the tree to teach you and communicate to you. And that's probably actually the most profound way to learn. But then you're also talking about learning through books, and you're talking about learning through community college. And so and that all of that holds up when you're talking to this kid from UC Davis. It all holds
Mm-hmm.
up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for
And it,
the international listeners out there, UC Davis is University of California at Davis, and it is one of, I don't know, are there 13 or so of them around the state of California? A large campus, very rooted in agriculture.
yeah.
UC Davis is one of the land grant universities here in California.
Yeah. Yeah. Embrace who you are and embrace all that it is, and do it in a way that's best for you, is a powerful component.
And I think also to encourage different language. So you talked about having learning disabilities, you talked
Mm-hmm.
about having dyslexia. Those are words. But if you were to describe in your own words your brain and your manner of learning and your manner of perceiving, how might you call these? What would be your words? And I don't mean to put you on the spot so much as
No,
to
no,
invite
no.
you to encourage, because I know there's courage there, and I know there's beauty and joy there.
You're not putting me on the spot. I take breath before I answer such deep, inspirational questions. Um, Dyslexia, a learning disability, it's a gift. It really is a gift,
Isn't
because
it a different way of seeing? I'm sorry, I want to hear from
yeah,
you,
oh
but
yeah, yeah, because you're seeing, and you have a different set of language that somebody that's from the mainstream perspective is not going to see in the way that you are.
so it's back to the mycelia actually. So if you're the kid in the back of the classroom watching, but you're holding connection for the other kids
Yep.
by your quiet presence.
Yep.
You're anchoring.
Mm-hmm.
And so here you
Anchoring, you're
are.
breaking down, you're helping take care of the old and bring in the new.
Huh, fungi do that too, don't they?
Yep.
That's right. Back to the soil and the compost bin, and fungi are amongst the decomposers of the world, which is really more about the repurposing of energy and nutrition, taking it from one form and making it available to become another form. And so we call I don't know, I feel like one of my purposes in life is to create new language around things that are so tired and old and misidentified. So
Mm-hmm.
we're talking right now about learning the names of plants and animals and other living beings, and that there's a studying that's involved in that. I feel like we also need to digest and decompose old language that's tired and actually inaccurate, and then look for the actual true language. And so the word disability, no. gift gift a gift of different of an alternative route of perception, and of being able to break something down and allow it to reemerge, and that there's pathways available for learning for someone with that brain. uh, I don't want to call it style, but let's say category. That there are pathways for learning,
Yes.
including
Yep.
going on hikes, right?
Yeah.
Including,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. And you seeing something from a different perspective. Yeah. Working with people that are blind and taking acorns and saying, "Hey, here's an acorn from this," and then
Oh,
having, when they feel it
yeah,
and they're able to see it from another way,
yeah. They
you
probably
can.
feel the weight of it. They feel how
Mm,
pointy it is, or how smooth, or its density,
yep.
its texture.
So if you're ever doing something in life, or you take an acorn and you're out there and you're feeling it, close your eyes. You want to smell the surrounding area, and you want to really enhance that sense of smell. Close your eyes.
Mm, mm. And this is said by a photographer. So you are a professional photographer,
Yeah.
and so how do you bring your other senses in with you when you're taking a photograph? That's a visual image. How are you bringing other senses in to create that? Because I remember my first uh, experience of your photography. I think, is it coming when I email you and there's some kind of a photo stamp on your email? But it was one of those, like, your breath takes in, it takes your breath away kind of an experience, which to me says there's more than just a visual capturing happening in that moment. So what else is happening when you're taking something in visually?
Um, so it goes back on to when you're taking something visually and you're taking it in from a photograph perspective. You're eliminating all the stuff that is mainstreamed out there as far as photography goes, where you have to have the best in the grandest camera,
Oh,
um, which is not the case at all, because you're looking at your own window. Um, you're seeing things through a window. You don't need to have some fancy camera. I mean, for the longest time, I shot off an SL1, which is a beginner style camera, um, and now I shoot off an old 13-year-old Mark II Canon. When everybody's doing the mirrorless cameras, I'm still back to the older elder cameras. Um, but in that process of time, I'm not taking a bunch of photos. I'm really taking in all that's around me, and I'm looking to where the light would approach, um, whether what side, east or west or so on. But really also the surrounding. I'm feeling the ground. I'm feeling everything that's happening in that moment and really embracing it. Um,
Wow, I have the sense that you're funneling your presence into this shutter. Something about like there's all this life happening around you, and you have your feet, you're grounded, and then there it is. Snap. I don't know. I just have this image.
Definitely similar to how I feel. Um, and I'll speaking of grounding, so I'll ground my feet and my well not my feet, but my position. So I'm putting everything from where I'm feeling from down below and ground it into the earth.
And how do you
And
do
there's
that?
just a waiting.
Is that an intention setting? Like, what does that? I mean, for someone who's never grounded, and I'm sure all of us ground differently. What are you taking your thoughts and intending for your energy to be into the earth? Are you
Yeah,
lowering your
yeah.
body
So
physically?
I'm taking my thoughts and intending my energy to go from my energy up here and then send through the earth. And I'm breathing in this process. Breathing
Okay.
is such a key element. Um, and I'm waiting. And sometimes I'll be waiting for 30, 45 minutes to an hour, just waiting. Um, and if the wind kicks in, I'm taking all that in. And once this takes place, then I'm looking at to where I'm going to be capturing that moment with the window. And sometimes it can happen, it can just show up and like, oh, I'm here to kind of sit or I'm here to kind of do scouting. And then, whoa, we're in it. It's happening right here, right now. Because photography can be spur of the moment sometimes with landscape photography. You get light shifted in a certain way.
Yeah, I imagine.
Um, and now I position myself and look through that camera, look through that window and see what I want to capture and what I want to capture from this and that feeling that the viewers are going to gather from that. And once I'm ready to take that photo, um, I might take a few to kind of get the right angle or what have you, maybe two or three. But the real true photo, there's going to be a push of breath. So I'm going to take in my breath. And then once I click, I'm releasing my breath. And click.
And and I first of all I want to honor your time, and if you feel like we need to wrap up, just let me know because I'm about to take you in another direction.
No, feel free.
Okay. The other direction is I know you're a time traveler, and or I am intuiting that you are a time traveler, and in taking a photograph, you are actually allowing people to travel in time with you to that moment where you've taken the in breath and the out breath, and then they are seeing through your window that time because that time has already passed by the time that you are publishing that photograph. But you were talking about trees being portals to information and memory. And if the trees are giving you permission to answer this question, then I want to honor that and ask for permission and not assume that I have it. But can we hear more about that? About your ability to connect through their memories to that place, to other time, and how that might be important for us in our healing, in the call to action. Because when we started this conversation, you were talking about slowing down being a portal to how we can give back to nature. I think there's something there. Is there something there? Is there
Yeah,
something there?
keep going. You're doing great.
Okay. So my question is, do we have permission to ask the trees to tell us through you a little bit more about that time travel and a little bit more about people that were here before and how we reconnect in a way of balance and sacred harmony with earth as we are in this precipice of a moment in time? And the oaks, and I have, you mentioned being in tears. I have this real, I'm not so worried about us humans whether we continue along, but I sure am worried about the oaks getting to be here still. And and anyhow, I feel like it's important. I'd like to ask that question.
Sure. Well, they are, the oaks are really helping with that driving force of having us have a portal of understanding
Mm.
through memory.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have access memories and stuff that's difficult for me to discuss of
Mm-hmm.
trees, even with the redwoods as well. And I've access memories of what was currently going on when they were lumbering
Oh,
everything. And I've heard the sounds,
yeah.
and I've,
The
I've,
incredible trauma.
yeah,
Uh,
and and I've seen memories of oaks, and I've seen images of what happened with the Native Americans, and it's really a deepened memory.
and so I want to pause here for a moment and thank you for bearing witness. And I know that to be witnessed in a sacred way, one has to know that one is safe. For someone, for anyone, for an oak tree to share or a redwood tree to share those memories with you, is they know that they're being safely witnessed. They know that they're being honored in that telling of that story through you to you. And that's a huge responsibility and honor that you're taking on.
Mm, very much so. Um, but I know through from one to another to another to another that we can all come together as a whole from what these trees can do for us, we can do for ourselves, and it'll help. That I can feel the axes. I can feel the TNT explosions that was used to blow up Marcus Lepatus. But what we have now, um, and what still remains here, we can we can save, we can learn, and by entering these memories.
And it seems to me, Michael, that those that are called to see the memories are called because they have the capacity for it. I feel like it's a just want to put a word of safety. You asked Grandmother Oak to protect you. I want to put a word of safety and prayer out to anyone who's listening who feels like that might be overwhelming, and just say, life shows us what we're able to see when we're able to see it. Whether that's our own trauma memory or someone else's trauma memory that we are witnessing, we are not given that window until we're ready, until we actually have the capacity to ground it, to move it, to transmute it, to to compost it, that and then to reintegrate it. And you're talking about a process of reintegration and holding on to what we have now, and it seems to me like there's nothing more hopeful than an acorn. Whether that acorn takes hold here, where climate has been where climate has been appropriate for that acorn, or whether that acorn travels to a new place where climate is now appropriate for that acorn. It seems to me there's no hope greater than an acorn.
Yes, no hope greater than an acorn, and no hope greater than the California scrub jays and the drays of all through the world of the Northern Hemisphere that deliver those acorns and plant them in such a successful way. And those birds are the deliverers and the forest makers. And yet they have one of the misunderstandings of birds within the bird community from a lot of people because of the noises that they make.
Huh. And I think I want to add to the jays being important, there's also the acorn woodpeckers.
Yes. Yes. And such learning that we can learn from the acorn woodpeckers, because the acorn woodpeckers gather acorns and spend 7 years to develop granaries as their children within the clans of 7 years will help to gather these acorns and store them, but yet it is not their primary source of food. It is flying ants and beetles. So those acorns that are stored for the community at large. And if the community at large wants to receive more acorns than they did before, then they bump the production up. And if the production needs to be even more, then the oaks will hard mast, which is a deep connection where the oaks will create 2 to 3 times more abundance of acorns than they did from previous years.
Wow.
And they're communicating with each other from acres away.
So not only are they sending, so are oaks wind pollinated or are they insect pollinated?
Wind. They tried insect seed a long, many millions of years ago, and it didn't work out too well for them. So
They can
wind
be
pollinated.
they can be further away from each other basically,
Yep.
as long as it's a windy place.
Not necessarily, because of mycorrhizans are also sending that communication.
But I mean, from the sense of pollinating, if you're going to make an acorn as a pollinated fruit, that there has to be the 2 parts. I'm forgetting what it's called in plant world, but there's the pollen and there's the, I forget, but you know what I'm trying to say.
I'm drawing a blank too, and that's okay. We can embrace that.
Sure, our human mind. But so the you have to start with the male and the female tree, and the wind connects the 2 of them at the flower to form the acorn. So the wind has to help out in that way. But then, like you were saying, to share the nutrition, to share even the medicine that they make for themselves, that they can share through the mycelia network, they can be quite far away from each other. To share the water, they can be quite far away from each other.
Yeah. And the oaks are male and female, so we'll have male and female parts. Mm-hmm. But in the wind, I mean, they'll all get some significant amount of wind somewhere. And if the roots down below, when the roots are spread out at the bottom parts of the upper part of the soil, they'll spread out in the direction which is called the lee of the tree. So where you're seeing more of those roots spreading going out is where the lee is. So the wind's coming from the other side and pushing that way. If the trees are smaller, significantly smaller, and they're bigger, like in marker 32, that means it's getting a ton of wind. So trees in a forest are going to be a bigger width and a deeper rooted structure to help protect against wind in the outer part of the forest versus the ones in the inner part of the forest, so they're protecting each other.
Yeah.
So the other ones can spend nutrients and energy into developing maybe more acorns or something else, and not so much on protecting against the wind, because the other trees in the outer part have it taken care of.
Wow. So so I want to bring us back to you at the time of the earthquake in 1989, and you're on the tire swing and you're being protected. You have the sensation of being protected by the oak tree. And here you are now taking people out into nature. And like I was mentioning before, we have nature here, and yet we're also very urbanized here. And there's a lot of human beings here. And so to live at the edge of the wilderness and to take people out into it and to help them slow down and help them be detectives and help them be explorers and also engage with their own inner listening in a way that we can all hear the messages that are being broadcast to us by our non-human brothers and sisters. And I don't even want to put gender and everything, but what I'm trying to be is inclusive here. Our brethren non-human brethren at this critical point in time in Earth history to hear our own direction and our own purpose. And I am observing in you that you have listened in this kind of a way, and that you have picked up the call in this kind of a way, and that it started at, well, it seems like it's been a continuity of a journey, but Bishop Ranch and the Black Oak community there really broadcasting to you very strongly. Where you're peppering your mother-in-law with questions. You're feeling this draw, this pull, and so do you feel that we have hope in this process of inner listening and taking directions that are coming from that place?
I think there is hope. There definitely is hope with the more people that get in touch with nature. And when I lead my hikes, if someone really likes oak trees, or they really like mushrooms, or they really like flowers, and so be it. Go in that door and choose that door and do what you do best, and that's okay. But a lot of it is the younger generation. Um, that's what kind of you know I worry about the most, and male. A lot of most of my hikes, I would say 90% of my hikes are women.
Hmm.
I've done hikes where it's 14, 15 women. Um, and so we need to get more guys out there, although we do have some fairly um, good guys and stuff that are really in love with nature. But and then the younger generation. And if you start taking, people take their kids out there, um, start early, it could really be a nice push in the right direction and provide hope.
Wow, thank you. I want to just take a quick look at my, not even quick, just a touch in with a list of verbs here. Act, you've acted, and be together. You are finding a way to draw people together. Build community, you're building community through these hikes. Delve, boy, do you delve. We've definitely talked about delving. Developing awareness, finding and following your own path. And I'm going to add a feeling and expressing gratitude. I'm hearing you do a lot of that. Persist, move. Hiking is a movement verb, isn't it? Whether it's done quickly or slowly. Spending time with the land, spending time with trees and other plants, and teaching. And I'm going to add to your list storyteller. You're a fantastic storyteller.
Thank you.
Have we had the journey that we were meant to have in this conversation? Is there more that you came to share today?
There's so much more that I can talk about, and I don't want to take up a bunch of your time because I've got.
But I suppose that's
so
an invitation, isn't it? I mean, for people to reach out to you for.
Yeah, absolutely. Come on my hikes.
Yeah,
really come on my hikes. We've got one that's Beth is leading. I'm going to be there too, and we're going to be talking about her inspiration that she learned through her life, and talking a lot about because a lot of the big things that we get, a lot of women are afraid to hike alone. So we're going to be talking about that and the safety and Beth's a great person to talk with about that because she backpacks alone all the time.
Oh wow, yeah.
And she's paraplegic.
So how does that work? So is she in a wheelchair and she backpacks by herself?
Nope. She has walking sticks and backpacks by herself. She's also done the Grand Canyon down and up, not once but twice. She's done rim to rim. She's done the Sierra. So we've kicked a lot of doors down together.
My mind is absolutely blown. What a fantastic inspiration she is.
Yeah, she is for sure.
Wow. No, I have to tell you, now I'm feeling really slow.
I'm
feeling like a really slow hiker.
No, don't feel that way at all. She takes her time when she hikes. She's persistent, but she takes her time, and she's always driving that into me to take your time and just to slow down. because there'll be times where she'll, hey, did you see that large rattlesnake when you passed up that particular tree? No, what?
Oh, right,
You know,
right. So if,
well,
when
no,
you,
I didn't. I wanted to see it. But yeah, so she's a great inspiration because she'll give others the courage to really push forward, move forward, catapult into really getting in touch with nature. Because our hikes really focus on the science and non-science approach with nature and stuff. But a lot of hikes out there through meetups are kind of driven with the competitive nature.
okay, yeah.
Um, a lot of that you see that with yoga too, but a lot of competitive hikes, so people kind of get drawn away from that. And I'm only saying this because I'll admit I've gone to meetup groups and acted like something I was not purposely to see how they would approach it. Um,
Just
and
to
I've
get a
had a lot
sense
of,
of the market.
yeah,
So for people that don't know, Meetup is just yet another social platform that actually allows for meeting in real life. So it's like you put out, hey, I'm doing this or that. This is the cost. This
mm-hmm,
is the venue. This is the time and the place. This is the number of people that I can accommodate. So
yep,
it's a way of advertising an event,
yep,
basically. So you've gone on other hikes just to see what's the flavor out there.
yep, to see what the flavor. And okay, if I approach this hike and I act like I'm really slow, how are they going to handle that?
Oh, okay.
Um, and that kind of gathered the intel from doing that and then saying, okay, well, this is stuff that, that I can approach it differently.
Huh.
And I've had a lot of people come on my hikes and say, hey, I was on this hike or this meetup or whatever, and it didn't work out because they would just take off.
Got it.
um,
You're finding a way, to accommodate and include is what I'm
mm-hmm,
hearing you say.
yeah, because the
By
more including we do, the
by
better it's going to
intel,
be.
by sorry, I just think that's funny and fun that that you've gained that data by being a spy.
Yep, yep. um, and our hikes have other hike leaders. I'm in the process of talking with a girl that's going to be doing meditation and yoga. We have somebody that's really knowledgeable in birds and coyotes and stuff
Wow.
that's at night.
Wow.
We have Beth. We have a guy that does rocks. So all these different people, eventually we're going to key in. So there'll be different channels that you can access
Wow.
on different topics.
Yeah. I look forward to plugging into that. That's amazing. Really amazing.
For sure.
Well, so because of the way that I am stockpiling interviews, this may or may not be posted before your hike with Beth that you're talking about. And so when this is posted, we'll find a way to allow for real time information. So when people are actually listening to this interview, whatever month that happens to be in 2022, 2023, you and I can find a way to make sure that there's real time information about how to plug in with you and your hikes.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, Michael, thank you. What a pleasure.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing you out there.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. We will do that.